All right, hello, welcome back. Sunday, so time for another interview as we do every Sunday for the past 80 Sundays or something. There's a lot of content out there. But anyway, welcome Skybilz to the show. Hello.
Hello.
How are you doing this fine Sunday?
Hey, big chillin'. We just got done with Flame Fatale as of yesterday. I was a runner for the event last week, and it was a whirlwind of a week preparing for it. But run went really well and just raised a lot from a lot of fun. So I'm super hype about that.
Sounds like we have perfect timing on this episode then.
We sure do.
So, yeah, I'm sure we'll get into that, but I guess to start, kind of just summarize what you do in the speedrun scene.
Sure. So currently, I am the host of Games Done Quick's random number generation for GDQ Hotfix, and I also just celebrated. I think it was episode 104. So we just got done with about 100 episodes of random number generation. Been working on that for about 5 years or so. And I just love showcasing randomizers and the runners behind it for their community. Besides that, I do the occasional speed run. I just kind of return to speedrunning in a way, with the, as we were talking about before, the NES World Championship or Nintendo World Championship NES edition. Big fan of that game, and I did speedruns of the speedrun mode and the legendary trial.
Yep. I've definitely done a lot of work on the Legendary Trial. I have not thought of the speedrun mode yet. It looked a little complicated to me, but we'll see.
Yeah, the speedrun mode was something that Lack Attack had come up with, and it's just fresh file to credits. The thing that makes it complicated is that you have to plan for the amount of coins necessary to beat the game, which is dependent on your rank. So there is a little bit of farming that goes into it, but the better you do, the less farming you have to do. So it is a very complicated speedrun, but I love it. I wouldn't have it any other way.
Well then, perfect. Yeah. I don't know if it's for me. Love the Legendary Trial though, but yeah, I mean, I'm glad there's plenty of ways to run that game because it is pretty good. Um, the games list is, there's some interesting choices, but overall, like, the package is pretty good.
We're talking about Ice Climber, right?
Of course, yeah. We all collectively hate Ice Climber. That's just how it is.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But yeah, anyway, moving away from Ice Climber, I guess we can get into the meat of the episode and we can start with how you got started with speedrunning, how you found it, etc.
So I first got into speedrunning back in about fall of 2013 is when I actually first started playing. I remember watching Summer Games Done Quick 2013, and I thought to myself, this looks difficult, but I feel like it's something I can do. I've been playing NES games for and N64 games for my entire life. It was just something I was always into. So I picked up a controller, started working with Super Mario Brothers 3 was definitely one of my first. Power Rangers the movie was also one. I don't know, because it was something I rented from the rental store. Yeah, I'm dating myself horribly, but I do that all the time. And what is an interview without dating myself to some capacity? So, yeah, started out about 2013. And I got into racing on, here we go again with the aging, Speedruns Live. I don't know. I'm sure you've done
Oh, yeah, yeah.
races on their GT. So, as a matter of fact, I met a group of friends, the Super Mario World crew. That was another one that I really got into through racing. And we had done regular races of 96 Exit. We had weekly race. We always had fun with that. We had a pretty big community at the time, and it was just something I had always done, like have it. So yeah, 96, SMB3 Warpless, those were both pretty big at the beginning for me. And I had actually met my partner Author Blues through SRL racing, and I remember him doing a comment that said, this was not my finest hour. And I was pretty proud of the time I had put down. And I finished 5 minutes behind him. And I'm like, oh, who does this guy think he is? So I tuned into his channel, and now I have a lifelong friend and partner out of him, about 10, 11 years later from that point. So that's how we got started in speedrunning. We we both attended AGDQ 2015 together, and I had gotten involved. I'd done my first hosting gig, I'd done donations, and ever since then, I've been a pretty active member, let it be in the volunteering aspect or in the running aspect of speedrunning. My first GDQ appearance was Oregon Trail back in 2015. Very fun run. You can check that one out on YouTube, and it's baby everyone basically. It's baby off, baby me, baby Spiked Vegeta, baby Lack Attack. You know, we were all just. Oh my goodness. When I watched that video last, I laughed at how much younger we had all looked because, again, that was about 10 years ago, right? And then recently, I had kind of gotten back into speedrunning. I took a little bit of a break, and Yu-Gi-Oh! Forbidden Memories. I absolutely fell in love with the speedrun. Played the game professionally growing up. Also played the game itself, Yu-Gi-Oh! Forbidden Memories, and just was a really, really big fan of the game. So I ended up playing that with a race against Kizaron at AGDQ 2023 online. And again, another thing for y'all to go check out after this. It was a wild run, had a lot of fun, and then showed up again for AGDQ 2023 online with the Mario All-Star Shuffler, the same thing that I had just done at Flame Fatale last week. And if you've ever seen the Shuffler, you know, you may think to yourself, how do you speedrun this? And my answer is very carefully. You kind of have to distinguish between what you can get away with on the shuffler and what is going to make you survive the most, and you have to kind of find that intersection between the two. So yeah, that is the long and short of what I've been doing with speedrunning lately.
Yeah, the shuffler is very interesting. I haven't tried it out myself, but there's no warning when it swaps, right? So it's just like, well,
No, no, it's every 30 to 60 seconds, and I don't know what game I'm going to shuffle to. I feel like in a marathon setting, it's best lent when you have games with some similarities. So, what better than, you know, Mario 1, 2, 3, Lost Levels, and Super Mario World, which is what I had. And I did any percent no wrong warp. Didn't want to deal with wrong warps in a shuffler capacity, right? So, that was the best way to do that. And I felt like it's a comedy of errors, right? Like it's a speed run, but you know there's going to be mistakes because of the random nature of it, and you just own it and you kind of roll with it. And that's what I like about it. You know, being the host of a randomizer show, I kind of like when things don't perfectly run on script. So that, and of course, you get Forbidden Memories as well, are very much up my alley, which is why it was odd that I picked up the Nintendo World Championship NES Edition, because that is very much a traditional speed run, but very much enjoyed that as well too.
yep, it's a good collection again, except for a couple things, but you know, yeah, I'm excited to see what they do with that. If they like make it a franchise, like you know, a SNES edition or whatever they do, like they have some sort of an interest in speedrunning, which is kind of interesting given, you know, you usually it doesn't sound like the kind of thing they'd be too interested in.
Yeah, yeah. I think they at least left the door open for that opportunity, right? Like I don't think they would have put NES edition when you think about the past Nintendo World Championship titles. When you look at even like, you know, the fabled gold cart, for instance, it's just Nintendo World Championship. So the fact that they put a NES edition there kind of leaves us to believe that if that game is successful, there has to be a SNES edition that follows, right? So that's what I was thinking about going into it as well.
Yeah, I think that's the main theory, but who knows? I mean, they left some space for like some more styles in Mario Maker 2 and did nothing with that, so who knows? Who knows what they're thinking up there, but I'd like to see more. But yeah, I've heard plenty of people be like, I hope they update this with more games and stuff, and me too, but they won't. Let's just be real.
Yeah, can we just like get rid of Ice Climber and like, you
Also,
know,
yeah, if they're gonna update it, just update it by getting rid of games, not adding more. That's the way.
so like my only thing about that is that I wish there was more non-first parties. Like I feel like it's missing a Mega Man. It's missing a Castlevania of some kind. Like there's just something about it that feels bare bones without the addition of those franchises to me.
Yeah, and there's probably something about that. They probably are purposely making it only Nintendo made games, so
Of course, of course.
as they do. But I've seen some stuff they done in the past. I feel like other companies would be okay with being like, yeah, sure, here you go. But I don't know. I don't
Yeah,
know what they're thinking up there.
I would agree. Capcom does a lot of work with many different companies. You know, we see them selling shirts on the Yeti. We see them having a deal with like Madrinas, for instance, and doing like Mega Man labeled like coffee and such. So it's like we know Capcom is very willing to work. It's just Nintendo's always been odd about that kind of thing, right? Like they like to be kind of self-serving about that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's I don't know. They fascinate me sometimes with their decision making, but I mean, they do make good games, so it is what it is, I guess.
Oh, it sure is, but it's certainly fascinating to think about that, and I think that that's going to be one of the sleeper hits of this year. I think with the $30 price point, I feel like the Nintendo World Championship is just something that doesn't get discussed enough. You know, I feel like it gets lost in the many arrays of releases. You know, I think of the Elden Ring DLC right away, where it's like the Nintendo World Championship's definitely going to get lost amongst that, or Hades 2, or something similar to that.
Although I do see, like, obviously they have the weekly challenges. They pick like 5 challenges in the game, and they actually finally give you a leaderboard for them. Another thing that game's missing is just a leaderboard in general. Anyway, um, you look at like the participants, and they usually hit 6 digits, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah, it very much is because you would think, okay, so there is an interest out there in retro content, and that's good that it continues to reach that, right? Because if there is that much interest, not only did it mean that they sold that many units, but that signals to Nintendo, okay, these older games are still doing work, so to speak. And again, it kind of turns their eye on speedrunning as well, which is again, we've talked about this a couple times during this podcast already. That is something that we weren't expecting and seeing because Nintendo's always felt ways, so to speak, about speedrunning. So it's very interesting to think about what went into that project.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, they clearly know what live split is because they almost copied it one for one. So
You know, it's funny you mentioned that because I've had so many people coming into my stream saying, "Wait a second, why are there two instances of live split open? Did you check your window?" And I'm like, "No, no, 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 no. I can't control that second instance of the timer."
that is in the game.
It sure is.
And it works. I mean, yeah, it looks like live split, so if people are getting confused by it, it's doing its job, and the whole game is accurate to the frame, which is very nice. Thank God for that.
Do you remember the old way before live split? Do you remember what the old set of splits was called, perchance?
Um, it's like letter split, but yeah, I remember. I never used it. Live split was out when I started. I started around
Okay,
2017, but
okay.
I've definitely seen it.
I believe the term landfare sticks out to me for some reason. But yeah, I remember using the old one, and live split just completely streamlined everything. So be happy that you didn't have to deal with any other set of older splits because live split really does it all.
It is perfect in so many ways. I mean, it's so full of features that it's almost confusing. Like yesterday, I actually wanted to make in-game time splits for Legendary Trial specifically, and I couldn't figure it out for a good while because there's just so many features in the program. But we got there eventually.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'm glad you were able to as well because whenever I get a confusion with live split, I call off. He
Mm.
usually can fix it for me because sometimes I'll just end up like, you know, deleting like half my splits or something like that going, "Oh, I just wanted to like change the background or, you know, the font on the lettering or something like that." It's quite a program.
Yeah, very complex, but I mean, you can get it to do whatever you want, which is the cool thing. Like, there are so many different styles of live split you see on people's streams, and it's all live split. It's all done in there. So, definitely a very nice creative tool, as well as like just actually works as splits if you want it to just do that. So, it's for everyone. Would recommend. Although if you're a speedrunner, you use it. That's just how it is. But yeah, since we're still on the topic of the Nintendo World Championships, I guess since I haven't dove into the speedrun mode because there's a speedrun for just the speedrun mode, you can kind of explain how that works?
Sure, I can totally do that. So I remember when I was looking at Legendary Trial and I felt like it was lacking substance. And then I saw Lack Attack running the speedrun mode, and I'm like, you know what? This looks more my speed. So again, you start out the game, you delete you create an alternate profile. Let me start there so I don't get
Okay.
anyone's files in trouble. You create an alternate profile, and from there you start out from a fresh file. And the routing that at least I've done, I don't know if Lack's done any innovations to the routing since then. You complete the entire first row of speedrun mode because, again, those are free in terms of the coin value that you need. And after that, I go through the entire Zelda 2 branch. And the reason why I go through the entire Zelda 2 branch is because farming the Barba fight in particular, it's very easy and very quick to get an S rank on that. So we go through the Zelda 2 branch as quickly as possible to get to Barba, and then depending on where you are, how many S's you can typically get, that's going to be the equivalent of how much you'll need to farm Barba for, at least for what I do, for the rest of the run. Some folks farm to like a certain amount, and then if they have to come back to Barba, they can come back to Barba. But I tend to farm everything all at once to try to save time on menuing. Might modify that down the road if I return to the run. It's been a little while because I've been working on stuff for Fatale, but if I return to that, that is going to be where some of my major time save is how much farming I want to do on Barba. Because it is a little bit for like the first portion of that run. Think about like if you are running a game and there's an auto scroller at the beginning. It kind of feels like that, except your auto scroller has consequences. It's very easy to mess up the jackhammer attack on Barba, and then you lose time every single time you mess that up, and you have to do it a ton. So we start there. And then from there, I at least personally, I'm sure the routes may vary. I like to just go to the top of the screen, Mario 1, and just go all the way down through Kirby's Adventure at the end. And then when the screen fades after doing the final level in Kirby's Adventure, that's where I split and the run's over. It's a pretty intense, we'll say hour and a half or so. That's
Hmm.
about where my typical time falls, is somewhere around 1:30.
And does like a challenge completion just mean beating the challenge at all? There's not like any consequences
Yeah.
for not getting an S or something like that?
Well, there are consequences because that depends on what you choose to do with your coin farm, right? So let's
Hmm.
say I'm living on the edge here and I do a minimal Barba coin farm. I need more S's than anything. So with every A++ or A+ that I get, if I don't get those, that's coins that are lost and the likelihood that I have to return back to Barba to farm. So yes, you don't have to get S on everything. The world record doesn't even get S on everything. But the more S's you get, the faster you're going to go.
Okay, and it's all because of the coin route. Okay,
Hmm. That's what makes it interesting.
got it. And so the completion though is just every challenge, which there's like 150 or something, 156 I think. All of them were completed, and then the credits roll.
Yeah.
Got
Yeah,
it.
and once the
Okay.
credits roll, you're done. Yeah, it's too bad. It's pretty much what your standard speed run would be. You boot up the game and then you just wait till the credits roll and that's it.
I guess that is the standard rules of like an any percent run.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, it's just interesting, like trying to route a whole coin thing. I know there's a few games that I can think of that do something like that. And I don't know. I don't know how I personally feel about farming. Like, I don't know if
Yeah.
it's my thing. Like, obviously, you have to do it sometimes, but I don't know. I'm so far just stuck to the legendary trial because it's pretty straightforward, all things considered. So,
It taught me how to get good at Barba, and that's what I like about it.
hmm,
As a matter of fact, I've been working on submissions to marathons where involving speedrun mode where it's going to be a relay. So me, Author Blues, and JSR, as of this recording, we are working on putting together 2 relay teams. And it's going to be 2 teams of 4, and we're going to be doing that for an AG to Q submission. So if you've ever watched the Kaiser Relay, it's going to be kind of like that, where if you complete a level or if you get that little rewind feature,
hmm,
thinking about all the mishaps folks have had with the rewind features, um, you have to swap the controller really quickly. So you have to be familiar with all the levels because you never know if you're going to get past the controller in the moment.
well, I'd be interested. So that sounds fun. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. We also have a lot of suggestions on behalf of Carl Sagan 42 as well that's working on that. So we'll see where it goes and we'll see what the games committee thinks. But everyone should be pretty familiar with the speedrun mode. I'm not sure if we talked about an estimate yet. If I were to guess, at least, I'd probably say somewhere in the 140, just to allow a little bit of room for error, a little bit of room for everyone passing the controller, that kind of thing.
Hmm. So with farming, do you just keep passing the controller so other people can farm it?
Maybe. I mean, that's one way to do it. The Barba farm, honestly, we're talking about like on average about 3 seconds. So I don't know if you would do like so many farms or something like that, but that's a good question though. And that's also going to depend on what we feel like our team average is going to be. There's going to be some strategy behind that, right? One team could try to hustle the other team saying, okay, well, I'm not going to farm that much. And then all of a sudden we're going to have this like kind of arms race of sorts, right? So I'm interested to see where that goes strategy wise if we were to get it into the marathon.
Hmm. And something I just thought of is it could be like a completed file and it's just the first to beat all the challenges. But yeah, if there's a rewind or the next game, you have to swap it.
Mm-hmm.
So that could work too. But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it's whatever sounds best for the games committee, I guess.
Yeah, yeah, we're still trying to figure out some of the logistics. And now I don't know when GDQ is going to be releasing the, game submissions or open thing. But Auth and I, at least, we need to make sure we kind of have something prepped in advance because Ultra Bliss and I are going to be heading off to Kaizo Coliseum. I
Hmm.
believe that is going to start. Let me see what is time here. That is from the 6th to the 8th, I believe, on Grand Pooh Bear's channel. And so again, perfect time for this recording, right? This is between Fatal and between Kaizo Coliseum. And we do some kind of speed runs there, but Kaizo Coliseum is more about challenge runs and it's kind of speed run adjacent, right? But we usually have a really, really awesome time there. Like, just cannot say enough good things about working with the Coliseum team. So we're between those two. So me and Oth kind of have to figure out, okay, when is the games committee going to release submissions? So that is something we're also having to deal with. So there is that aspect as well.
Yeah. I'll be honest, one of my speedrun goals right now is to somehow get into one of those Coliseum events. Someday,
Yeah,
hopefully.
it's a lot of fun. So there's Kaizo Coliseum and Speedrun Coliseum. Me and Oth lately have tended to gravitate towards the Kaizo Coliseum, but we've attended at least one of each. And our first event we attended there was 2019 Mario Masters Coliseum, which was like the older version of that. That event was wild. So when Oth and I got asked back a few years ago, we were absolutely thrilled with that prospect. So definitely one of the best times of the year is to go to the Coliseum events because you never know what's going to happen. And the incentives that they have for that are wild. Like, yeah, playing the games is fun, but when you're doing stuff like, the cannonball contest, and I'm like one of the judges there, it's fun. I like the wild stuff, the expect the unexpected type thing.
Yeah, with most speedrun events, it's pretty straightforward. Here's your schedule. There you go. But here it's like, well, whatever happens, happens, I guess.
We're going to do recess and we're going to do a 3-point basketball contest and we're going to play dodgeball. It's that kind of
Ooh.
thing, the things that the in between stuff is the things that I tend to remember the most because it stands out, right?
Hmm. Yeah, you can't get that anywhere else, really. At
Yeah.
least as it stands right now. But yeah, I'm glad there's so many different, a huge variety of events out there. Content of all sorts, but it's all still like speedrun or speedrun adjacent. So if you're interested in that, you can watch like all of it and understand what's going on.
I feel like that's kind of where the future of speedrunning heads is kind of like we're speedrunning, but there's like these adjacent things going on. I feel like that is going to be what grabs audiences. I mean, yes, it's great just to have the events that just have the straight up speedruns, but the showcases, we're seeing GDQ even moving in this direction, right? We're seeing rhythm showcases, we're seeing randomizers. thanks to a little bit of an influence that I may have had from random number generation. But we're seeing like these adjacent things going on. And I think that's great. I think being able to blend these together alongside traditional speedruns is going to keep speedrunning as a hobby going into the future, because that's how you're going to grab a massive audience.
Hmm. Yeah, and I mean, there's so many things that do their or events that do their own thing. So
Hmm.
they'll have their speedruns, they'll have their showcases, and then every event is different in how they approach it, and it ends up just being like there's a almost an event going on at any given point, and it's got something like that it's its own unique twist on the formula, I guess. So.
You're not wrong. I think we're going to get to the point where there's always something going on. You know, people try to make their own even like stream events, and they're like, okay, well, I don't want to compete with this, that, and the other. Well, we're getting to the point where there's always something going on, right? We have the two GDQ events, we have the two Fatal events, we have the Coliseum events, and it just feels like it's only going to keep expanding from there, which is tricky as a streamer, right? But it's really cool if you're someone who's either looking to get involved with the community or looking to generate a larger audience.
Hmm. Yeah, plenty of ways to get your name out there, I guess, with the amount of
Mhm.
events that exist at the current moment. So, and I mean,
Absolutely.
events are just fun to go to. That's my addiction. Ooh, event, let me go.
Well, we are happy because GDQ, they used to have the events much later in January, right? And that's why Auth and I haven't been to one, because Auth teaches college and that kind of fed into the college schedule, unfortunately. But now GDQ has it so it, at least for this event, it's going to be earlier in January, so we're able to attend again. So it'll be nice to be able to go back and kind of meet everyone. It's going to feel like a reunion all over again.
So this will be the first one since 2020, you said?
That's correct.
Wow, 5 years. It's crazy. It's been
Mm-hmm.
5 years since then. Ugh, I don't
Yeah,
like
I
that,
don't understand. I don't understand time myself.
man. Yeah, I barely remember 2020 at this point.
Mm.
Like, who remembers a pre-pandemic world? I don't. But
Nope.
yeah, that was a good event. The location was nice at the time, so. But yeah, it's crazy how much has happened since then.
Yeah, agreed. I'm curious to see how much things have really changed. I've talked to friends who have gone and they're like, "Yeah, it is a little different since 2020," and it'll be nice to actually see like what has actually happened since then.
Yeah, the past SGDQ felt kind of back to what we remember, but obviously it's never going to be exactly that because things haven't exactly gone away yet. So you got to
Sure.
be mindful of that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, SGQ was great. So I think it was the best event I've been to so far, and I've been to a lot. So I
Oh,
think
that's
they're
exciting.
I think they're back, which is good. So should be a good time. I was at AGDQ this year as well, and it'll be the same location. So the venue was quite nice there. I think everything was on the same floor, which was very
Oh,
nice.
nice.
Very easy
Yeah.
to get from the practice room to the stream room. You just walk across a like big main area. The hotel was a bit but
Yeah.
so that'll be interesting. But other than that, venue was great. Location is good when it's not below freezing the whole time and covered in snow. So hopefully it'll be a little more traversable this time because quite a bit of stuff to do around the area. So yeah, should be good. I'm looking forward to it. So
Yeah, same. It'll be nice to be back again.
yeah, so I'm gonna go back to the beginning here because kind
Sure.
of I try to keep things in a timeline and we kind of just stayed at the modern tip of things. So to get back to the early days, so you said started with 96 and Mario 3 Warpless, right?
96 exit Mario 3 Warpless. Yeah, that's correct.
All right. So what was it what was this like 2013, 2014?
Yeah, about 2013 to 2015 is like the general timeline we're talking about.
And most of that running came from like races on SRL.
Yeah, I did some RTA grinding, but most of it did come from races on SRL overall. It was a way in which I could stay motivated because sometimes the grind just got really exhausting to me.
Yeah, I mean, grinding by yourself is gonna be mentally taxing. So
Mhm.
a race you don't,
And
all you have to do is finish, and you can talk to people and not feel alone. So there's that, I guess.
And at that time, I actually did not have my own streaming setup. At least back in 2013, I didn't. I had to go over to a friend's place to stream on his computer in order to even stream and do RTA attempts. And then after that, I got set up on my own MacBook. I would not recommend
Mm,
streaming off a MacBook. It was nightmarish to get everything to work. And even then, everything kind of looked pixelated at the time. And then from there, I started to develop a community, and we ended up, with their help, building at least a basic rig for me at the time, and that's how I got my streaming career started.
that's cool, especially back then because Twitch was not what it is today. That's
No,
for
no,
sure.
I I I interacted in a lot of channels at the time, even before Twitch was a thing. I used to go on Justin TV and interact with the Mexican runner and Trihex, and they kind of helped me get more involved in the communities that I was in.
Yeah. It's cool that so many people from back then are still doing stuff today.
Mhm.
Like, it both feels like it's been a long time and hasn't, I guess. I don't know. It's weird.
One thing that kind of makes me reflect upon how long it is that my friend CT Conqueror founded, and it's no longer a thing, unfortunately, but there's used to be a group of events called Southern Speedrunning Summit, and also known as SSS. Again, that acronym is being used for so much nowadays, but back then we had that. And SSS took place at Darvian's house, and every time this time of year rolls around, again, great timing on this. Um, Usually around Labor Day, we would all meet up at Darvian's house for a long weekend and just hang out, have our own event. Didn't benefit any charity event. We would just get in there and do a bunch of fun stuff.
Mhm.
And to this day, I just kind of miss it. It was just all of us friends having a really great time. And I miss so many of them because it's been so long since I've seen them. But yeah, we had SSS for about 4 or 5 years before we split, but there's not a year that goes by, early September that goes by where I don't think about them and think about hanging out at Darb's house for SSS.
Well, this is actually cool. I can relate to it because I found out about speedrunning in August of 2017. So,
Mhm,
and I think Darbian was the first channel I followed just because I found speedrunning through the Summoning Salt video about Mario 1. So,
mhm.
it all comes full circle, I guess. But so that SSS was one of the first things I've ever seen.
No way.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Wow.
Hmm.
So you knew exactly all the goofy stuff we used to do back then.
Yeah, I remember like so I found out about it in 2017. So whenever that happened, that was the first speedrunning event I saw because I didn't like know about GDQ yet or anything. So yeah, I remember there was the whole like dragster tournaments and the
Oh
you would
my
have the
gosh.
Mario battle mode with the brackets and everything. Yeah, I remember it very well.
Yeah, I have to go see if those pods are available anywhere because there was just so many like goofy things that we used to do there. But yeah, Dragster was definitely one of them. We used to do like the 70 star, kind of like the Coliseum almost. I feel like SSS is closer to Coliseum than it is to GDQ, but it was
Hmm.
kind of like the two met, right? We never did anything super off the wall. We were definitely more traditional than Coliseum, but we were off the wall compared to GDQ, as in you never knew what was going to happen next, but it was within the sphere of speedrunning. At least we didn't stray too far from that. So yeah, we had the SMRPG races. I remember it was um Mill, Lack Attack, and at the time Albrecht, I believe was the name, but I believe it's Barreling now or something like that. But yeah, so we had the very cozy SMRPG race. I remember like we would just kind of bundle up and get comfortable and watch the race. Yeah, we did a lot of stuff off camera as well too. We did laser tag, we did bowling. We always went to our favorite donut place early on, sometimes multiple times if they would run out. So we did a lot of stuff off camera too that y'all didn't see. A lot of it was just stuff off site.
Got it. But yeah, so that went for 5 years, you said?
4 to 5 years. It was something like that. Yeah. I want to say we finished in 2018 might have been the last one. I think it may have
Mm,
been like 2014. No, it was definitely 2015 to 2018 sounds about right. It might have been 19, but I know we were definitely not doing them at 2019, 2020-ish.
got it. Because I remember seeing two of them live, so yeah, that that
Yes. So
that
that
works
that
out.
that about tracks. Yeah,
Hmm.
that about tracks. So it may have, I remember there being four of them at least, but it was a long time ago. But I'll have to go back into Darbian's videos and see if I can find some of those because now I kind of want to go back and see what we did.
Yeah, but so yeah, that was just happened to be the first event I've ever seen was the 2017 one. So
Well, I am honored as a member of SSS that you were able to see that. I know we've definitely talked to CT with that we were like, oh, what if, even if we couldn't do it at Darvian's place again, like what if we brought it back to some capacity? And we've definitely talked to a few people and they were like, why don't we do this? And it's just like it's the organizational part, right? Like it was
hmm.
so easy for us to meet at Darvian's place, and it's the fact that we'd have to find another venue, which makes sense. It makes sense. We were growing to the point where we had people sleeping on pool floaties. I
Oh my
kid you
God.
not. In Darvian's, somebody brought a pool floaty to sleep.
All right, well, you make do with what you've got, I guess.
I'll never forget that. It may have been like Millennium or something like that, but I just remember somebody brought a pool floaty, and I'm like, "Are you really going to sleep on that?" And they were like, "Yeah, yeah, why not?"
I see. Well, I can definitely see how that kind of outgrew.
Oh yeah, they like if you got up in the middle of the night, there were just people sleeping everywhere. I just found out recently somebody was sleeping in Darian's tub one of the nights, and I was like,
Oh my
"Wait a
God.
second, that happened?"
Well, as long as the water wasn't on, I guess.
No, it wasn't. But what if somebody got up early to shower?
Oh
Yeah,
no.
I just found that out like a week and a half ago. One of Darian's friends had showed up in my chat. I'm like, hey, it's really great to see you and all that. And he was like, oh yeah, I slept in Darian's tub one of the nights, and I was like, oh my gosh, maybe someone was snoring. That's my current theory, and I'm sticking to it.
Oh my.
Oh.
Oh, the fun stories from the smaller events. See, it is a little crazy. It was a little off the wall, I guess.
It was, but I wouldn't have it any other way. We had a great time.
Hmm. Yeah. I know his basement was kind of crazy too. He has a ton of televisions down there.
So the way I would describe Darvian's basement was every time I went down there, I swear to goodness, I'm like, this reminds me of a Goodwill. Like, cause there was like
Oh,
racks, like with hangers and stuff like that. And then there was like the wall of TVs, including the Disney Princess television. And
that's
just
still cool.
everything about that basement reminded me of if I went into a Goodwill store. And I can still see it. I can still see the whole setup in my mind, but it was great.
All right. Well, I'm glad we could talk about that because yeah, I definitely remember that very well, given it was one of the first things I happened to see. It's crazy how long ago that was now, but I still remember it.
I know. If you go back and if anybody goes back and watch the videos again, it's the same effect. We all look like so much younger in the except Darby. Darby never ages. He always looked the same no matter what.
And when I started watching, that's when he had facial hair for that brief period of time. So,
Oh my
if
gosh,
anything, he
yeah.
got younger.
We don't know what his secret it was to this day, we just knew that he liked there was like a certain brand of chocolate milk he really liked,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
we are like, okay, it comes from that. It has to come from that. And I swear nowadays if we were to see Darby, he would probably still look the same.
I mean, he is a young boy on Twitch, so he's got to stick by that, I guess. Yeah, I remember all the memes, don't worry. I might have been a little later, but not too late to not know about all the stuff that went on back then, so.
No, if you watched in 2017, you are definitely in on all this. I remember as much as Darbian loved Mario games, I believe personally, based on what I know about him, he equally had that same love for games that were not Mario. You know, he
Mm-hmm.
used to love racing Gilligan's Island with Oth, like way back in the day. I don't know what it was about that game, but him and Oth just absolutely loved racing that game. He later came back to run Elf. That was another
Mm-hmm.
one that Wizard of Oz we saw him run, and I'm like, a lot of people are like, why is Darian running this stuff? And I'm like, oh, I know why. He has a love for that kind of thing. You just didn't know it. And then I believe the very last thing I saw before he decided to take another break was Little Nemo Dream Master.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah, Cool Spot was another one as well. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely a collection of just interesting choices. I remember, but it was pretty. There was the what was it? Dennis the Menace on Game Boy. That was
Yep.
a very interesting one because the color palette in the record is this abomination. It's like, how do you get a record on that?
I'll tell you something. Running too much dragster does something to a person.
I see. Yeah, I'm glad I stopped after like a day.
He did not. That one
Yeah.
SSS where we played Dragster, we were tearing down everything the day we left, and he was still playing Dragster, and I'm like, you okay, bud? Everything all right?
Yeah, I remember the tying the task time and it's like finally and you never have to play it again and just the pop off, the it's all
Oh yeah.
over. Good
I
times.
I think I think he was ready to be done with that, but at the same time, he wasn't gonna leave it alone until at least that was finished.
I mean, yeah, according to the leaderboard, if I remember, he was like the third person to do it, and it was the first on like I think technically it was original hardware. I know it was kind of an interesting setup. I don't know how Atari games work. I'll be real, but yeah.
I was personally kind of hoping that the Nintendo World Championship Nest Edition would bring him back, but who knows? I'm looking forward to seeing if he comes back. What does he come back with? You know what? I said Little Nemo was the last thing. I was wrong. It was the Earthworm Jim games. I
Mm.
remember him playing, and I was like, wait, Darvian's doing Earthworm, and then yeah, sure enough, he was. So yeah, that's what I remember seeing him do last. Now that I think about it more, I don't know what year it was or anything like that because again, I've lost track of time. But I remember he was doing that, and then he decided to take another break.
Yeah, I needed to come back so I can have him on my podcast here.
I would love to see what he's been up to lately. Because, Darvian's more of a private person, and
Mhm.
I tend to respect that. I don't want to poke him unless he's more active on the internet. I totally respect, if he wants to take a break, he wants to take a break. But I do hope he comes back at some point. It would be great to talk to him and see what he's been up to.
Yep. I just hope all is well. So yeah,
Hmm.
I don't I won't pry either, but yep. Just hope all is good. Plenty of good memories he's caused, I guess. So
Certainly,
it's
yeah.
nice
That's
to
the thing.
reminisce.
I just miss the guy. And again, it's wonderful talking to someone who has seen SSS before because
Mhm.
if you hadn't, it'd be very difficult to kind of like explain what we used to do because just so many memories involved with that. Yeah.
Yep. No, I remember it quite well, so it was cool. I remember Walrus doing a new Super Mario Brothers run because he was one of the people I interacted with early on. So that would have been the 2018 one, I think. So
Yeah.
the
Yeah. That would
last
have been
one.
one of the more recent ones. Yeah.
But yeah, I remember it very well. So it's nice to talk about it. I don't think I was able to talk about that yet on here. So
I'm surprised you didn't talk about it with Author
I
Blues
might
because
have. I mean, it's been a while, so I probably just forgot. But
yeah, he had his hands in making the schedule more than I did. But yeah, if you ever have Auth on again, you'll have to ask him about it. He may remember some stuff that I don't.
but yeah. So SSS. It might have been 6 years. Rest in peace. But it was cool. I remember it. I
Yeah,
could recommend it
absolutely.
back when it
I could
happened.
too.
Yeah. Yeah, I love the smaller events, like again the Coliseum events or whatever. There's something just so unique and cool about them that I don't know.
The kind of memories that you form from those events, It's not what happens on camera, I'll tell you that.
Mm.
Like, I remember going to my first Mario Masters event, for instance, and I remember getting there. And and I'm like, okay, well, we're in the desert at the time, and I'm like, all right, I need something to drink. You know, we landed, and at night it was still like 108 degrees or something. So I remember
Oh.
landing, I remember getting there, and I'm like, okay, you know, this is I believe it was still direct relief at the time. I'm like, surely there's water in the fridge, right? So I go out to the, I'm like, Patty, because you know Patty's one of my friends. I'm like, Patty, you know, is there somewhere where I can get like a bottle of water here? I'm kind of parched right now. We just landed. It was kind of dry up there. And he's like, oh, yeah. He's like, let's go to the fridge. And I'm like, all right. So we both go out to the garage, and he opens up the fridge, and he's like, he looks at me, and he's like, well, we have Red Bull and beer. And I'm like, like I say again, I'm like, I need water. I told him. So like they started to have like a shopping list going around for like what we needed for the week. And I wrote in big letters, water bottles. And they were like, you know, that may have been a good idea for us to get really early. And I'm like, yeah.
Interesting
So
decision to not have that off the bat, but
well, that brings up a memory that we had at SSS too. We always used to do like the opening grocery run, right? Like there were typically multiple grocery runs. But I remember we went to a Kroger, and it was like what 11:30 when we got there, and everybody was like, "Oh yeah, let's see what kind of beer they have." Blah blah blah. And Lack's like, "You all can get beer." Lag Attack was always one of the more practical ones of us. He's like, "I'm gonna go and I'm gonna get like stuff to make sandwiches and you know things like that." And he was always the more practical one, you know, stuff for breakfasts and sandwiches and stuff. So, you know, we all kind of hang out, we all kind of get stuff. And I remember midnight hit, we were all like checking out. The guys had their beer, Lack had his, you know, kind of more like practical things. And they were like, in the current state that we're in blank state, we cannot sell beer from midnight to 6 a.m. So they made our friends put back all the beer. They're like, wait a second, we can buy beer at 6:08 1 a.m., but we cannot buy beer at 12:01 a.m. They're like, yeah. So all the guys had to put back all their beer, and we had to do another beer run the next day. And I just remember how mad some of my friends were.
well,
It's just the odd things like that that stick out, right?
I mean, yeah, the inconveniences you tend to remember, I guess. It
It
doesn't
was just, it
funny
was
looking
funny.
back. Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say like it's funny now, but I remember back then we were like, "Come on, it's 1 minute after," and it was just one of those like one of those moments that always stuck out to me.
Should have found the beer faster. Come on, speedrunners.
Well, that's I think somebody did make that exact joke there.
I mean, yeah. It's a guarantee when you're a speedrunner that you make speedrun jokes constantly, so.
Oh yeah, yeah.
But since you brought up the Mario Master event,
Yeah,
kind of go more into detail about that.
sure.
When was that?
That was 2019.
Okay, got it. And how was that all done?
I'll tell you, I was still fairly new to that particular scene, that particular group. They made me and Oth feel so welcome there. One of the nice things I like about the Coliseum events is the accommodations for the, you know, we were talking before about like the GDQ hotel, which that's rough, right? Because you're trying to house like a big group of people. So
Mm-hmm.
that's a little rough. But for the Coliseum events, when you have a tiny group of people and we're not all, you know, kind of cramped into one person's house, when you have an organized group like that, especially with the backing of like, you know, sponsors like Red Bull, for instance, we were housed in a really, really, really nice place. I remember laying out by the pool whenever I didn't have a run just because it was just so relaxing for me to do that. And just everything involved, like the sitting situation, just the bedding situation, just everything was so comfortable for us. And I feel like it's been that way across the board at any of the Coliseum events. Mario Masters was a little different, but the Coliseum events were also like had that same feel to it. Like I would group them together in my mind. And one of my favorite parts was just the accommodations. I had never felt so physically comfortable at an event, you know. I joke about the water, but like the day after they had everything for us, right? So it was just, anything that I could ever need, I should say, at an event like that, it was provided. And it was just really, really nice to be taken care of so we could focus on either running or in between the events, just kind of chilling, getting to meet new people. And again, just everybody got along. There was no awkwardness at all. And even if it was someone I didn't know, I'd just sit down to them and start talking with them. And you don't get that at the bigger events, right? And it's no fault of the event of its own. It's a very different experience.
Yeah, there's too many people and too many things to do. You just can't. It's
Hmm.
impossible.
And I think the thing that's very different about that is we were all streamers, right? So we all had that in common to kind of go off of.
Hmm. Yeah, it's definitely easier when you're all doing the same thing. So,
Exactly. Yeah.
yeah. So what kind of, I guess we can talk about like group all the Coliseum events together, but like what kind of runs do they do and what kind of not runs do they do?
Well, yeah, I think the not runs is more relevant, and that
Hmm.
is not a knock. I actually enjoy the not runs. It's anybody can jump in on anything at any given time. Let's say there's a 70 star going on, and you pass the controller around per star. But at any given time, you may have to use oven mitts to do your run or something involving an incentive, and you just need to be ready for that. The thing I like about it is that yeah, things are kind of timed, but that's just to move forward the schedule, right? So if we run a little over, a little under, it's fine. It's one of those that at the Coliseum events, it's less about the individual and more about what we can do as a group together. We have a loose schedule, but you can see anyone at any given time. I remember at one of the Coliseum events, I want to say it may have been Speedrun. I'm trying to remember. We kept having this ongoing running gag of the event where anytime a boss came up, someone in chat would donate for 8F to finish off the final boss or finish off like the final chapter boss. So every time someone would donate, we'd be like, all right, where's 8F? And that's the thing, right? Because we didn't have a person assigned to the schedule. We had like a loose group of people assigned to it. But at any given time, if somebody donated, it could be like a question for somebody. It could be like somebody does a certain segment, someone teaches somebody how to do something. Like that was all in there. So, and it's funny we mentioned SSS, right? I don't know if you remember the teaching Strider segment, but I feel like the teach someone a speedrun thing kind of had its own course as a result of that. So, without the smaller events like that, we don't get as many ideas. So that's the kind of thing that we draw off of. But yeah, that would be the main difference between like the Coliseum events and something like a GDQ is anybody at any given time can step in and you better be ready to do something. If somebody donates for something, it's like, okay, yeah, we'll do our best to make that work. Doesn't always work out that way. But if we have it in our power, we're going to do something really goofy with that. So it's one of those, the times are a loose suggestion because we never know what kind of constraints we're going to have with said run.
Hmm. Yeah. So, yep, always a fun watch. All of them. Like, I'll just have any whatever event I know of that is existing right now. I'll have it on usually in the background somewhere. So those are always a personal favorite because again, they're very different from a standard speedrunning event. So.
And I think it's good that we have both the standard events and the non-standard events
Hmm.
because again, very different feel. And sometimes the non-standard events can inspire submissions for the standard events. You may not have the same chaotic feel to it, but there may be certain essences of that get brought to bigger events. And at the end, it's great because it all ends up eventually raising money for a charity. And I feel like that's something that we carry from one event to the next.
Yep, variety's always good. So, but I guess speaking of GDQ now, I can go more into detail about that. So you said the first event you went to was 2015.
Yeah, that's correct. 2015. I have actual pictures on my phone of when I hosted. Instead of having like the hosting thing being on a bar on the stream, all we had was there was a white erase board that told you that day who the hosts were going to be.
Hmm.
That was it, and that was sitting outside of the stream room.
Hmm. Yeah, I'm not too familiar how the older events went, so obviously they were going to be a little more primitive than it is today. But they were still raising like 1 million back then, weren't they?
Oh yeah, yeah, at least that.
Yeah, so
But yeah, things they're very similar to the way they were today. If anything, GDQ has always been very consistent with the way in which they've run things. But I think the best way to describe it is at least the technology and stuff that went into it was a little more primitive back then. And they've really, in a good way, streamlined a lot of the processes that go on behind the scenes since then.
yeah, I mean, the biggest change, and I've talked about it a lot, that's so good, is having two setups. Oh, thank
Yes.
God.
Now, I don't know if I've been there since they've added the second setup. Now, I've certainly seen it from home because they used to do like the online stuff and I could also see things as the marathon was going on. But yeah, I have heard positive things from folks, both on and behind the scenes that second setup has been really good for keeping things on track.
Hmm. No, yeah, it's been running a lot better now. It's so nice because you can just set up while the other run's going and then they just swap over. Fantastic idea. So,
Oh, yeah, agreed.
yeah, they just keep improving their stuff, which is nice. But anyway, back to the 2015 era, like
Mhm.
I guess what else was like different back then than what you expect today?
GDQ was a little smaller, and I think
Just a
you've
little, right?
noticed that too. Just a tiny bit. I want to say the first event I went to was either 500 or 750, and someone can correct me either in the comments to this podcast, etc. But I remember it being tinier. And in the sense of a lot of people who attended GDQs back then were also streamers, right?
Hmm.
Like that was a way to connect with streamers. You'd have a little less of the audience, so to speak, and a little more of the streamers back then. Obviously, we didn't have 500 streamers. There were the general public that also attended, but you would end up running into more streamers than not back then. So that is the main like gist of it. Um, I'm trying to think about if there was anything else like kind of different back then other than the technology. But no, I mean, that's how similar and streamlined that GDQ's kept things is that one event tends to kind of blend into the next. I do remember a time before interviews. I do remember that a time before interviews, a time before prize segments. And I'll tell you something. I'll take the interviews and the prize segments. I actually think that those have been big upgrades to GDQ, and people have not realized how significant and how important those have been.
No, yeah, I think they're very important. I Yeah, I remember they've had interviews for a while. I don't know. I'm trying to remember when I like
You
started
have
going if
interviews
they
with the
had them.
charity. I think they
That's good.
used to
Yeah,
have ones with the charity, but like in terms of like with the
the
runners, all the
runners. Yeah.
goofy stuff that happens behind the background, all the thorough prize segments that are absolutely needed to pitch the prizes and the incentives, that stuff was not included until a little later on. I want to
Hmm.
say like 2018, 2019 is when they started to do that. But I remember, like, if you go back and watch the Oregon Trail run I did, for instance, it's very quiet between runs, especially in the early morning hours. It's just very, very, very quiet. I believe back then the hosting style was a little different. There was a little less incentives, so there was a little less things like kind of driving the stream forward. So that may have been why the stream blended together so much back then. Because nowadays we're being, driven by incentives, driven by the hype, driven by memes. We didn't have that quite as much back then, which depending on your viewpoint can be seen as a good or a bad thing. But those are definitely some of the key differences that stand out to me.
And now I'm just curious, how do you run Oregon Trail?
So yeah, that is typically an auto scroller. I go, there's like the different kinds of paces you can go, but the faster you go, the more risky it is for everyone to get sick.
Yeah. You mean die of
I went,
dysentery? Yeah.
yeah, I went at the grueling pace
Mm.
on the bare bones rations, and I hit the go button and I prayed.
Oh, okay. So that's all it takes, huh?
Well, I mean, to be fair, I finished it, I want to say just under 5 minutes. I mean, it could be a little over 5 minutes, but somewhere in the vicinity of 5 minutes. And it was fast. I did deliver there. Nobody thought of Oregon Trail being that fast. So I did deliver on the speed run part of it. But honestly, I didn't have any more control than anybody else. Like, I remember during practice the day before, I had not one, all of my oxen stolen, and that just destroyed my run. That's why my estimate was 15 minutes and not 5, because if that happened, I had to prepare to fully reset my run and go again.
Hmm. Just a fascinating choice. Was that like a silly block, or was that just no?
Yeah, it
Yeah.
was. It was
Okay.
it was an early silly block thing, and I was just just back then I submitted a bunch of Mario stuff, but I just threw that in, and it got in as a bonus game, probably because we had a real Apple II in there, and that was a pretty big draw for
Okay. Yeah.
donations.
Yeah. I definitely see that then. That's cool
I
that they had
think
that.
to this day, and again, someone could correct me if I'm wrong, I may have been one of the person to run on the oldest software there. I can't
Mm.
remember if they've run on anything older than an Apple II, but I remember that thing was ancient when I saw it.
Yeah. That computer's a little old. Just a little.
Well, I didn't know I'd have to run on an Apple II until the actual event. Like I was running on emulator, and all of a sudden I get there, they're like, "Oh, we got a surprise for you," and I'm like, "Really?" They're like, "Somebody donated an Apple II for a loan for you to do your run," and I'm like, because I didn't know if that would complicate anything, like flipping the floppy disk. I didn't know if this thing was so ancient that it would be able to read it properly, but everything went pretty smooth.
Yeah, it sounded like it went perfectly actually. It was only
It
five
very much
minutes. So.
did. Yeah, no, I couldn't have asked for that run to go any better.
All right. And did you say your next run was until like one of the online events in 2023
Yeah,
or
I was I'm not gonna say it was as drastic as Dan Salvato's with the all melons, but I had just they could only take so many runs,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I had a lot of bad. I had submitted, like I still recommend everyone else did, but I just had trouble kind of like breaking through that threshold. When the Fatal events started happening, I was running at the Fatal events pretty frequently, but it wasn't until the AGDQ 2022 online where I ran at the main events again with Forbidden Memories, which was a tremendous honor. To this day, I'm still submitting Forbidden Memories because I would love to run that in an in-person event and really work the crowd with that. So I'm going to be submitting Forbidden Memories. I'm going to be submitting the NES World Championship with the relay. Um, I'll be submitting probably another shuffler. I would like to do a shuffler in person. I still have yet to do one of those. And again, it's just so we have that experience. It's going to feel very different in person. So I'm at least going to be submitting those. I wouldn't mind doing Zelda 1 Randomizer because, again, I'm the host of Random Number Generation. I might submit a solo run, but I'd love to eventually submit a race with one of my friends.
Got it. Um, so I'll touch some more recent GDQ stuff in detail in a second, but just to keep on the
Yeah,
timeline, you
sure.
even though you kept submitting, you would still go to the events, right?
Oh, yeah, I very much enjoyed hosting. I feel like that I was one of the pioneers of, kind of my own hosting style and what was going on with that. And I feel like I kind of helped to cultivate the host to what it is today. It's very hard to kind of tangibly say how I did that. It was just one of those like style type things. And I feel like it kind of caught on and we kind of have what we have today. Oz did quite a few runs though. So
Mhm.
Oth did, and I don't know the years to these, but he did, I think he did both Rocky and Bullwinkles. I think he did Ness and SNES at two different events. And then he did Titanic as well, which if you have not seen the Titanic run, oh my gosh, please go watch that. That was one of my personal favorites. It was the awful block. I want to say it was either 2018 or 2019, probably 2018. I'm trying to remember now because they all blend together. And then, of course, he did the One Mind Run, the Super Mario World
Mhm.
One Mind Run with Lack Attack. And that was his first, to my knowledge, first non awful black run. And that was also a lot of fun between him and Lack. And I would very much recommend that. Oth has some mad Super Mario World skills. And it was really cool to see him on the big stage doing that with Lack. It was a lot of fun.
Mhm. Yeah, so I was at summer 18, winter 19, and winter 20. Those were my three events before the pandemic, so
Oh, and
that's like my frame of reference, I guess.
how could I forget? I believe Oth also did SMB 35, which Nintendo, I'm still
Mm.
mad at you for retracting that from us. Yeah, how could I forget about SMB 35? Everybody loved SMB 35. That was so much fun.
Yeah, I very sad. Yeah, my brain tries to block it away so I don't get depressed when I think about it not being a thing anymore.
Oh.
It's so stupid.
So yeah, it wasn't just the one mind, it was also the SMB 35 as well. And we love SMB 35. Oth, if you're watching this, if you're hearing this, thank you so much for doing that. That has a very fond memory. It was also the first time I met Adef too, who's now a good friend of mine. So it was really cool to meet friends through that as well. I'm gonna have to go back and watch that one at some point too. Now I have like this backlog of like old stuff I want to watch, and I have to add that one to the list. But yeah, Nintendo, if you ever hear this, bring back SMB 35. My gosh, we all miss it.
So yeah, as I was saying with like bad Nintendo decisions, that's probably the worst one for me.
It's
But
the worst one for, I mean, we're both classic Mario runners. I mean, I think that hit all the classic Mario runners equally. Like, we love that game.
mhm.
And in the closing days of that, when runners were very much playing it more and more, I remember Oth getting into some Japanese lobbies and doing some really ridiculous crap on there with it. And I was just like, I remember sitting there looking at him playing that. I'm like, how? How are you doing? And it was just this entirely different style of gameplay that I wish I could experience at least once, but I think it was gone the day after.
Yeah, just oh, makes me very sad they got rid of that. But I did watch that Mario 35 GDQ showcase. That was really cool to see.
It was a lot of fun. I really loved it. I remember because they had no control on who was in the lobby. I remember people trying to get into those
Mm-hmm.
lobbies. And I think one of us friends may have gotten into those lobbies for that because they couldn't control who was that. And it wasn't like anybody could ruin it or say something horrible. And I mean, Nintendo was fairly sterile when it came to their online capabilities. But it was still really cool to see people trying to get in on that when it happened.
Mm-hmm. And I know there was a lot of like there just happened to be a lot of really good players at the time, and some people got really unlucky with points because of it. But it was fun. It was fun to watch at least.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, GT, for digging up that memory, but I
Oh
can't
no.
help it. We're both classic Mario
No, yeah.
runners.
It's important to be vocally upset for nothing other than just events. Because
Yeah,
oh my god, why?
I think I can't think of a single community member I have that isn't upset about that.
You know, the worst thing is they would like take down fan made battle royales because of that, and then took down their own. It's like, what are you doing?
If I
Ugh.
had the answers to that.
One of their other like 99 style games is gone now too, right? Is it the Pac-Man one? I think they got rid of
Pac-Man
that
is
too.
gone.
Yeah,
I
it's
think
like
Tetris is still there and F-Zero is still there, which F-Zero was a lot of fun.
yeah,
I'm glad they
that was
decided
pretty
to hang
cool.
on to that.
But just, it can't be server costs. Their servers are from 2001, so I don't know what their problem is. But yeah, that's my vent of the day, I guess. Oh, I lost audio.
That is a very
There we
reasonable
go.
vent, and I am there with you.
Yeah, like yeah, vent of the day. There we go. So yeah, I remember. So I went to 3 pre-pandemic GDQs. So I don't know which one of those you were at, but that's like what I remember as my
Oh,
early memories of GDQ.
I was at every single one from 15 to
Oh, really?
2020.
J-
Yeah.
all A's and S's?
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay,
actually.
wow. Yeah, I try to go to all of them, but I actually see I submit to every event I can, and recently I like just keep getting in, and now I'm broke. So that's the one problem with
Oh.
events.
Yeah, they're not exactly cheap to attend. I feel
No.
that.
So it's cool that you can like afford to do that. Because yeah, it's so hard to travel just for anyone. Like I can't believe they get as many people as they can. It really shows how big the speedrunning community is now that so many people can not only go but can just afford to go.
We used to be able to drive back when it was in DC. So that's
Hmm.
how we got to the AGDQs so easily.
Fair enough. Yeah, I live closest to the summer, and that's still like 9 hours if I were to
Yeah.
drive. So I don't.
Yeah, ours is going to be about 8, 8-ish, 7, 8
Mm,
to Pittsburgh.
yeah. It is quite the hustle, but it is worth it though, because GD speedrunning events just in general are just the best time. The highlights of my year at least. So
Oh, yeah. Again, you have me excited to go back to the next one because it has been so long.
yeah, so I'll definitely do my best to be there. We'll see how life plans out, but
Sure.
I'll again the relay idea. Interested. I'll have to figure out my own things too, but yeah, having Nintendo World Championships on the main stage will be cool.
We'll see. We'll see. We still got to get it in. Who knows?
Hmm.
I have yet to figure out the games committee, so we'll see what they have planned.
I think they'd be interested in Nintendo World Championships. I really do. Can't say why I think that, but I think they'd be interested. Um, so yeah, that I guess we can get more into the modern day GDQ stuff now. So I'll touch on the Flame Fatale since I know you work with that a little bit. So what's
Sure.
guess kind of just explain what that is and what they do.
So the Fatale events are supposed to be for femmes and femme presenting folks, and it was just something where we were submitting the GDQ events, and we felt like, hey, why don't we have a representative environment that we're still under the GDQ umbrella? And I was never involved with any of the upper level management or anything like that, but I'd always submitted. I'd always felt very much behind the cause. Every charity that they had benefited women in some way. Malala Fund is the main one that is for women receiving education in the Middle East because that is very much an issue. And I was always behind that. I believe they had a couple other charities as well. The Women's Law Center or something like that stuck out to me. I don't know if I did that event though. I'd have to think back. But anyways, though, it was mostly for Malala Fund to my knowledge, and just a really big fan of the event, of the cause, of the people working behind it. So I had submitted to every event, and for the Fatale events, I have a pretty high acceptance rate, which always made me feel happy about that. It was like, yes, I get to participate in this event. I'm a big fan. So for the GDQ events, I'd mostly done volunteer stuff, and then for the Fatale events, I'd done a lot of running in there. So it was definitely a different feel, but it was still to help out charity, and I was always happy to help out in any way I could.
Hmm. And what have you run at those events?
So at the Fatale events, I had run a pretty big cross section. So I believe I had done Super Mario All Stars, all games, any percent, I want to say that I've run. I did a
Oh,
lot of stuff with the All
non-shuffled.
Stars. Non-shuffled, yes.
Non-shuffled.
I had done at least one Star Fox run because I used to run the original Star Fox. Level 1 Warpless was my favorite category for that. And I think from there it was just a cross section of Mario games. Forbidden Memories. I had run at least twice there as well because I love Yu-Gi-Oh! Forbidden Memories. And then the Shuffler I had run twice there. So lately, my recent speed running is Forbidden Memories, Shuffler, and then the Nintendo World Championships. Those were like the big three right now that I've been running. I'm always down to do a Forbidden Memories run.
so So, so I guess just explain Forbidden Memories to me as someone who has no idea what that is. I'm
So
interested.
it is a janky uh we'll call it alpha or beta version of the Yu-Gi-Oh TCG from the 90s. This is what the devs had envisioned that the Yu-Gi-Oh trading card game would look like, and they were entirely wrong about
Mm,
it. So that is the best way I can describe Forbidden Memories. They tried to have, some of the plot lines from what I believe to be season 0 of Yu-Gi-Oh. So it's not even from like a lore of Yu-Gi-Oh that most folks would be familiar with. And what happens is you have to get like a bunch of cards, you fuse together the cards, and then your opponent is like this omnipotent, all-seeing being. They always have access to the best cards, it feels like, and you have to overcome all of the odds involved in that to defeat the game. Like that is the best basic form because that game is very complicated. I mean, I play faster than what one could process that game. You really have to have this familiarity with Yu-Gi-Oh and with the janky rules that comes with the alpha beta version of Yu-Gi-Oh. But once you learn it, it's a lot of fun. It emulates a randomizer almost. Like I would describe it as this is the closest thing a speedrun can have to what a randomizer might be like without it being a randomizer. When the 15 card variant came out, that was when I wanted to engage with the game more. I'm like, okay, this is how you present a Yu-Gi-Oh speedrun without it taking anywhere from 5 to 8 hours. So once we had the 15 cards, I'm like, okay, most of the time I post like a 255 estimate for it. And I'll submit it to most marathons. Anyone who wants to have me for it, I'll do it. And if they turn it down, that's fine. But I always enjoy kind of memeing on Yu-Gi-Oh, kind of being like, okay, we're going to do this. I don't know what's going to happen, but we're going to do this. That is one of my favorite taglines before I start a run. Let it be the shuffler, let it be Yu-Gi-Oh. I want a run where we have that suspense. Will I finish it? Will the game give me a hard time? Will we finish well under estimate? Will we finish well over estimate? Well, now at this point, you can see why the games committee might have some questions about me, but they do create very high stream value runs. And I feel that those runs are a really great platform to help raise money for charity.
All right, got it. Yeah, I know nothing about that franchise, so. But
It's very different from the franchise. It is what Konami thought the franchise was going to look like.
So it's really just its own thing, and
Mm-hmm.
okay.
It is, and I wouldn't have it any other way.
Well, perfect then. Well, speaking of randomizers, then I guess we can go into detail about your show that you host on the GDQ Hotfix channel. So
Yeah, so I started Random Number Generation in 2019. It was towards the beginning of GDQ Hotfix, and a friend of mine had approached me saying, we're looking for more shows to add. At the time, I believe it was just the first step. I can't remember any other shows that was going on. And they're like, we're looking to bring more shows on. We are particularly maybe looking for something with randomizers because randomizers were very in vogue around 2019. So I was like, yeah, I think I can do that. At the time, I had done 2 to 3 years of just Zelda 1 randomizer. I'd played so much Zelda 1 randomizer. It was practically my stream for a couple of years. So I was like, yeah, let me try this. It was a little bit of supplemental income too for the stream, which was always good. And I believe when I had the I don't want to call it a pre-thing, the pre-pilot, I guess, was Yu-Gi-Oh! Forbidden Memories, because that game is so random it might as well be a randomizer. So that was kind of like the tagline for that. And from there, we had a really fun time with Random Number Generation. There's a whole list of episodes in YouTube, for instance. I'm going to bring that up right now, and maybe I can talk about some of my favorite episodes. But there's so many good ones.
So you've been hosting that for 5 years now, huh?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. So yeah, we had. Let me bring up the playlist. Oh my gosh, yeah, I'm looking at even like the graphics from back then, and I'm like, oh my goodness, this was really a while ago. Yeah, 4 years ago, it looks like this premiered. So yeah. Zelda Rando, SMRPG Rando, Pokemon Crystal. I had Asan with La Mulana, which is a very beloved episode. Some Super Mario World stuff. We did some Halloween stuff with Castlevania 4 and Bloodstained. Of course, we had Link to the Past, Ocarina of Time. Oh my gosh, we had Mario 35 on for an episode. There you go. There it is.
Perfect. I guess that is pretty RNG, if you think about
it. Yeah, you can't control what other people do. Exactly. It had Mario 35 randomizer, but it was just Mario 35. I may have to go back and see that because I was like, oh my gosh. A lot of Pokemon randomizers, just because Pokemon's a thing. Final Fantasy Free Enterprise, always a big fan. The Prime randomizers were cool. Talkatoo was on there, and Talkatoo was recently, at least in terms of the game, not the runner. Talkatoo was the finale of Fatale. Had some Earthbound, Wind Waker. So yeah, we've had a pretty big variety of randomizers. Obviously, we're always going to come back to the classics. We want to make sure we retain our audience, but yeah, pretty vast. Donkey Kong 64 randomizer. We've had that on a lot lately. A lot of people love their Donkey Kong 64 randomizer.com. We had a Dark Souls episode. I want to have on Resident Evil 4 at some point. That one's also been a pretty popular randomizer lately. So, yeah, just I cannot believe that we already have it says 107 videos, which includes all of the pre-shows we had as well too. And just it's interesting now looking back on the catalog of shows that I've had.
Yeah, yeah, plenty of content there. So I know episodes usually last a while because randomizers usually last a while.
Yeah, they're typically between 2.5 and 3 hours on average.
Yeah. Um, just out of curiosity, what about an archipelago?
I want to do more with Archipelago. It's just getting one of those organized. I tend to stick
Hmm.
with one runner because I went back and I watched like even like a two-person race that I have. It's so difficult for an audience to pay attention to a split screen of any kind on a randomizer because
Okay.
there's so much going on at any given time. If I could figure out a way for the Archipelago to work on a format. And then what happens if BK mode hits too, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I figure the best way to probably do an archipelago would be to have one runner doing 2 to 3 games if it's reasonable. That's at
Okay.
least how I think would be a good way to do that. But yeah, I've been trying to figure out for a while how to make Archipelago work in my format without having the super split screen where everybody's like, oh, what's going on here, 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 and here? Because I find that the more an audience has to pay attention to a split screen, the less likely they are to stick around because they can't follow what's going on.
All right. Got it. Yeah, I just know that would fit the format, I guess. So
It would. It absolutely would.
that's interesting. So 5 years sounds like of that show being a thing, and that's a long time for a show, right? I know shows come and go for the hotfix, so
They do. They do. My show is always considered to be one of the staples because there's always innovations being made in randomizers. It's not like it's a theme that's eventually going to run its course and that's it. At randomizers, just because there are so many innovations and so many different ways to package them, are always going to be this everlasting content. And because I feel like the show does so well, a lot of people love it. You know, we're pretty known. The show's known pretty well on Hotfix that they've kept it around so far.
all right, that's cool. And I know, I think it's more of a recent thing, but because of like being the host of a show, you're now considered like officially staff member of GDQ.
I am. I am. That was very, very recent. It was something that for a while I had been hoping for, and it had finally come true. So I'm very, very happy that that decision was made.
Yeah, that's cool. I saw a lot of people, a lot of the hosts on Twitter expressing their joy of being considered one officially now, so that was a cool
Yeah.
change.
Hmm.
Um, if you want a random memory from your hosting gigs at GDQ, my first ever GDQ run was summer 2020 online was the Mario 1 race. You should remember
Oh,
that
yeah.
you were the host.
I do.
So you were
I
the host of my first GDQ run.
Aw. Yeah, they typically when I did host lately, I've been taking more of a backseat to hosting. I've been doing hosting committee lately, so I've been
Mm,
helping to pick the host because of my vast experience in hosting. But in 2020, I remember I always request 2D Mario's, 2D Castlevanias, just because I'm very familiar with the community. I'm familiar with the run. But yeah, I very much remember your run. I remember it being good.
hmm. Other than the fact that I lost, but I had the record at the time, so I was able to.
I wasn't gonna say anything about that.
Oh, I mean, it is what it is, but I made up for it a few years later, so it's fine.
I always think of it being a victory for everyone involved because it raises money for charity,
Hmm.
but I'm kind of cheesy like that. I get it though. I get it.
No, yeah, like I'm not gonna be mad about it.
But yeah, no, I have hosted all kinds of Mario runs for the ages. I was the host when Pooh stomped his console twice.
Oh my god, yeah.
That
that
was a
was
memory.
that's interesting because that was summer 2018. That was my first GDQ I attended, and the run before that was the big Mario 1 Warpless race. So I was like front of the back couch for that kind of. There were a lot of people, so I'm back there, and we all like as a group like went out to dinner after that. So I completely missed the live stomping. unfortunate. That's truly a moment in history.
I just remember like my jaw was after I got my jaw off the floor during that. I'm like, oh my gosh, they're such great sports. Let's hear it for them. And then I started to get the donations pouring in, talking about warm community and good sportsmanship. And I'm like, okay, I think we made this work out.
And then the donations come in for stomping.
Pooh was so embarrassed about that. Like he legitimately like now he shrugs it off, but like he felt really bad in the moment
Yeah,
about it.
I can understand that.
I mean, now he owns it because that's Pooh. You know, something
Yeah, no, of
happens, he
course.
owns that. But like back then, I could tell he was like he was not feeling good about that in the moment. But like Mitch didn't care. Mitch was just like Mitch was laughing the whole time.
I've had both Mitch and Pooh on here, and I'm sure we've talked about it. I've gotten both sides, so I've
It
truly gotten
helps.
everyone involved at this point.
It helps that we're all friends and we all figured out a way to make it work.
Yeah, no. I mean, it's truly an unforgettable moment, so if anything, it's overall a positive experience.
Very much so. Yes.
But yes, I understand. And hey, that's the rare GDQ moment of things not going as scheduled, right? So that rare moment of panic or just the uncertainty of what the heck is going on now.
Well, honestly, like the other thing is that I was also the host for the Tetris Grandmaster setup block, the famous
Mm.
one.
I
You
haven't
know,
seen that one, so but I have
oh
heard about it.
yeah, it was about 2 hours of me stalling.
Mm. So good content.
I don't know about that. I did my best. I don't know whether or not it's good content. I can't say that. But what I did was I can say was I tried my best.
So was there just not much to? Oh, it just took forever to set up the thing. Okay,
It was major tech errors,
I
like
see.
major
I
like
see.
tech errors and tech setup, and it was a lot of problem solving on the fly. I'll put it that way.
Well, it'd be like that sometimes.
Hmm.
I've definitely seen some GDQ stalls in my day, so I mean, it happens. That's why it's good they have the dual setup now. It's gonna be a lot less frequent. So,
Yeah, that was again back before that major innovation, we'll call it.
hmm but what was it? I think summer 2023. I mean, I was there for the finale. The finale was at 6 a.m. They fell behind a little bit.
I remember that. I remember watching it on TV. I
Yeah, yeah.
mean, yeah.
So, that was a fun, uh, not sleeping moment. I don't know. Probably passed out in the lobby at some point, waiting for
Oh.
things to happen, but because I had a late flight. But
Hmm.
yeah, I'm glad that'll be less of a thing going forward. It obviously just because how live events work, there will be things here and there every event, but it should be a lot less of a major problem. So that's nice, but
And yeah, I'm still on the fence as to whether I want to do more with hosting and or if I want to continue to, as long as they'll have me, serve on the hosting committees because I feel like I've gained a lot of perspective and I can use my experience to help make good decisions.
mhm. So you've been hosting for them for 9 years.
Oh yeah. When was the last time I hosted? It was one of the online events. I want to say I hosted at 23, AGDQ 23 online was the last
Yeah,
time.
is there in-person events you have to be in person to host?
Well,
Yeah.
they do have a remote host, but it's only like one or two things.
Okay.
And honestly, like when it comes to that kind of thing, when it comes to the remote stuff recently, I would rather save that for someone who's international and cannot afford to get over here, or someone who's immunocompromised as well.
Got
So
it.
I tend to, I don't mind taking a step back, so folks who may have not had that opportunity have a chance to do that.
Hmm. Yeah, that's good. But yeah, you've been doing it for so long. You have any like either advice or stories or anything about like the hosting side of things that you want to talk about?
I would say to have good communication with everyone, have good communication with production, have good communication with your donations crew. Make sure you have like relationships with them. Make sure they're just not that donation person. Like make sure you actually like talk to them before their runs and talk to the runners. And the more communication that is established, especially before the run proper, the better things are going to turn out. And then the other thing is I always tell people to just always be yourself. Don't be someone who you're not. Don't try to be as bland as possible. As long as it's within GDQ rules and regulations, just have your own style there, because we don't want the same host over and over. We want unique hosting. Obviously, there's a fine line between that and bringing yourself into it too much, but if you can find that line, you can get some extra donations where there may have not been otherwise.
Mm-hmm. All right, and any just other memories from the years of hosting that stick out?
Trying to think. I did a couple finales. I want to say I did a
Mm.
couple Super Metroid finales. I remember being sad that I had to push for Kill the Animals
Mm.
because Save was very much in the lead, and I felt sad. I love critters, if you couldn't tell by the picture that you took with me and this cute little one that I have
Mm-hmm.
at my desk. And I had to promote to Kill the Animals, and I felt so bad. They're like, Sky, you're not being you, and I'm like, no, no, but I'm doing this for charity. So
Mm.
there was that. That was fun though. It's fun. It's fun hosting for the finale. I had a lot of fun for that. I would say still the stomp is obviously one of the
Yeah, of
the,
course.
the biggest memories. I
That's fair.
remember online even Mitch was running SME3, and someone, and you don't have to do this. I want to make this known. You don't have to do a request for an extra donation, but someone was like, I wrote lyrics for like this country roads parody. Can you sing it on stream? And I was like, oh gosh, let me listen to the actual song first so I get the right notes. And that was fun. I had a fun time with that. Um, I remember being there for the you can save money on a washer and dryer thing, and we all took a selfie on the World 4 airship together. They even asked me to come out of the hosting booth to do that. That was fun. I was also a commentator for the Mario Relay. That was a lot of
Oh, the
fun. That was
2017
something.
one.
Yes,
Yeah,
I was a
yeah.
commentator for that one instead of a host. So that was a lot of fun. I got to do that alongside Author Blues.
Yeah,
I
that
was
that
the
was a
Team
big one.
Reznor commentator.
Oh, well, yeah, there you go. I've definitely heard about Team Reznor plenty.
I made sure we weren't forgotten.
I got it. Yeah, that really was cool. I'm sad that was like right before I found out about things. So, oh well.
Oh, I knew for sure you would have been on there. You're very, very talented
Well,
at
back
Mario.
then I wasn't, but not yet.
Uh,
I didn't get there yet. I just meant I would have liked to see that. Is
oh,
all.
sure,
See that in
sure.
person because there hasn't been anything quite like that in terms of like Mario relays since then. I don't think.
And for anyone listening who heard some of my early hosting stuff, if I have broken your ears back in 2015 by being excited about the first wrong work performed at the GDQ with Mitch's
Oh
incentive, I'm very
yeah.
sorry. I did not realize how close the mic was to my mouth, and I just like I
Yeah,
was
that
so
I do
excited.
remember that. I specifically remember that because of the first Salt video about the any percent history. It ends on that moment. And you
Sorry,
just hear this screaming, and that is you, isn't
that was me.
it?
Yeah, Mitch had taught me a lot of the fundamentals of SME3 back then, and I
Yeah,
was there for him. He wanted me to be on his couch.
yeah, that's interesting because you think about the wrong warp today, and you can like do it with 100% consistency. But I think back when that was performed, it wasn't. So the fact that it worked at all is kind of just crazy. So I
Hmm.
understand the pop off. It was a
I
moment.
just didn't expect him to get it. Like I was like, oh gosh. Like I had watched his stream so much and watched it freeze and freeze
Hmm.
and freeze and freeze, and I'm like, oh no, I really. And then when it worked, that's when I popped off, and then I forgot how close the mic was to my thing, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm sorry, everyone.
It's one of those moments. But yeah,
Yeah.
it is crazy that it worked. Because especially back then, like even now with like the 100% consistent, if you like jump at the wrong time, it can still like load the room, but Mario doesn't appear, so it doesn't count. In fact, that
Yeah.
happened at some GDQ I remember, like, and of course it was Mitch, but like the room loads, but it doesn't load fully, so Mario doesn't appear, so it doesn't actually count. It's like, no, we were so close. It's
And
crazy.
yeah, and Auth and I were also involved in another part of speedrunning history. Auth and I had actually done some bits. Some of it made the camera, some of it didn't for running with speed. Auth and I had
Oh
also
yeah, there's
done some
that.
stuff with that.
Yeah,
I think one of my mini interviews may have made the final reel.
got it. And again, with the great timing of this, that is now free to watch on YouTube as of
It
like
is.
very recently. So yeah, I got to check it out when it came out. Um, so overall, it was pretty good. I mean, yeah, it's cool to have a documentary about speedrunning out there. I remember like in 2020 them pulling away people to interview them. Although I think a lot of that content didn't make the final cut, but
Yeah, there was a lot of stuff Auth and I had that didn't make the final cut. But to be
mhm,
fair, they didn't like come out to our place and do anything with that. So I knew though if we made it, it would be just like a few cameos here and there. But
mhm.
I I know that I at least one of my cameos had made it to the end.
All right. Yeah, I don't remember everything from that, but
Hmm.
but yeah, I remember, a lot of the big highlighted moments in there. So, and a couple of them I saw live because again, they were at 2020. So, like the Punch Out stuff, I saw that in the crowd. So, it was cool to see that. I watched it with my parents so they could understand a little more about it, but yeah, it's definitely worth it now that it's especially now that it's free. It's definitely worth the
Oh,
watch. Like
it's a good watch. It's a very good
I will
watch.
recommend it for that. But
It was very cool seeing. I knew pretty much everyone who was in that video. It was
mhm.
really cool seeing a bunch of my friends there.
Yeah, just a cool piece of speedrun lore, I guess, out there
Hmm.
for your eyes to watch. Definitely different than the usual YouTube content you see.
There was
Although
actually
it's still
another
hosted by someone.
video. There was another video that was recorded at an SSS, and I guess the project never finished.
Oh,
And
I
it
I
was,
think I know about this actually.
yeah, it was. I just remember one of the few things I remember about this was, other than they did interview me and stuff pretty thoroughly, I remember a friend of mine getting up to use like the bathroom, and like they were like filming him walking down the hall, and I remember him looking really like, why are you filming this? So
Yeah,
I remember there being a time where they were there twice, by the way, doing this filming. I remember leaving thinking to myself, I'm glad that I don't have to worry about being filmed walking down the hall into a bathroom, because I remember that being like a point of like everyone was just like tired of that.
interesting. Um, if it's what I'm thinking, some people are like trying to make like a Mario 1 documentary speedrun thing. I don't know if it was the same people, but
I don't think it was.
oh,
No,
maybe
no.
not.
This one was definitely different. I think they were trying to do what Running with Speed was trying to do.
Okay. Hmm. Yeah, I don't know how many like different things have been trying to be put out there. I have this I don't know how I have this video on my computer, but it's from like footage of one of these people trying to make a documentary, and it's of Darby and just buying eggnog at a Walmart or something.
What?
Yeah. So when you were talking about them filming random crap, that just made me think of that. Maybe it is the same people.
It could have been the same people. I just remember them filming really weird things that had nothing to do with speedrunning. Oh
Yeah,
my
so it
gosh.
probably is the same people then.
Do you have that? Because I
Yes.
would love to see that at some point.
I can arrange that. I again, someone must have sent it to me that was like in on it as a
I
joke,
would
but
never show
it's
this. Like, I would never
yeah,
put it
no.
publicly online. I just want to see it now.
Yeah, hopefully I'm allowed to even talk about it, but I just it's too random. But yeah, like yeah, I'm not gonna post it anywhere, but I do just
No,
have
no,
it.
no, no, no.
I do
I
just
just,
have it.
oh my gosh.
It is one of the funniest things I've ever seen. I'll give it that. Darbium is hilarious. Even I don't know if he knows he is, but he's hilarious.
I think
Oh my
Darbian is
god.
at his best when something awkward happens and it's candid.
Hmm. Well then, that surely was this moment. So
Oh my gosh. I can't believe that, you know. I am talking about parts of my past that I have literally not thought about in years, and I just
I'm happy to have you recall these incredible life-changing
Ugh.
moments.
You don't think they're significant until you start thinking about them, right?
Yeah, no, I get it.
Like everything from us playing. I will tell you something else. Darbian is very good at social deduction games. Like he is
Mm,
very interesting to watch. We used to play a lot of board games, right? And we used to play
like
like
secret Hitler code names type things. Yeah.
I don't know if you remember Darkman, like the
Mm.
Darkman. We call him Thad. Him and Darbian playing Secret Hitler at 1 a.m. and them yelling at each
Fair enough. Yeah, the best I can get out of like, the Darby you don't really see on camera all too much was, at GDQ, since he was at HDQ 2020, I got some battle mode, the 4-player battle mode.
Yeah, that's Darbian for
Yeah, there
sure.
there we go. So I've had some ass kicking and shit talking happen, so I get it. I know the competitive side.
He used to love talking shit to my partner, Author Blues. Like that was like a thing that they shared together.
Yeah, I remember some moments from. I probably helped clip some moments from some of the SSS battle mode things. I don't know. I was pretty into watching it. So
Especially with Lack with them too. Lack was just as competitive as the rest of them.
yeah, it need, the whole like group of people that would do that haven't been at GDQ in a while. I
Yeah.
the all the post pandemic GDQs there has not been battle mode, and I'm very sad.
I may have to talk to Mr. Blues about that then.
Mm,
Maybe he can find some people to set up with it. Oth loves being in the practice room, by the
mm-hmm.
way. Like, if anybody sees Oth in the practice room, feel free to say hi. He's very friendly person. He loves. We have the multi tap too for battle mode. I could see him setting that up.
All right, cool. Because I it has been a long time, and I can't handle this like drought anymore.
I have a feeling for this event in particular, especially given where it is in the month, it would not surprise me if there were some more old school people that showed up.
That's good because yeah, it's been a while. Like I know enough people where I can always have some group of people. Like I'm friends with some newer runners as well, but you know, it's the people you rarely get to see that's like I'd like to see more because you rarely get to see them now.
I'm afraid that I'm not going to recognize anybody. You know, I'm getting up there in age now comparatively to when I started going for this. So I'm afraid I'm going to be there and be like, "Who are all these kids?"
Well, I haven't gotten too like weirded out yet. Well, it helps when you just make friends with as many people as possible, I guess. Then
Sure.
it doesn't matter, but I mean, there's still plenty of people from all forms of the speedrunning community that go. It's just maybe fewer than it used to be
Well,
from certain groups. So,
this will be my first event with a badge. So that'll with a staff badge. So
oh
that'll
yeah,
definitely be a new thing.
that's cool though. So, can flaunt that around.
I don't know about that. I remember talking to Auth and I'm like, you know, I really hope people aren't going to be afraid to say hi now, thinking that you know, you
Thinking
see
that
the
you're
staff badge going like, yeah,
security and will
yeah,
shun
yeah,
them.
something like something like that, you know?
I wouldn't worry about it. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, I mean, GDQ is still cool, so I hope to be there in the winter. Again, I love the location if it wasn't again freezing and snowy, but
No, I understand
Pittsburgh's
that.
very nice, so uh, hopefully the event as well, and I can attend and enjoy my time. Hopefully something with the Nintendo World Championships gets in, and that can be a whole thing. So
That would be great. That is the dream. We'll do our best to try to get it in.
yeah, I'm looking forward to that. God, I'm kind of running out of things I know to ask. I mean, are there any games you've ran that we didn't cover?
Trying to think, like Castlevania 3 would be like the only other one that I didn't
Ooh.
cover. I did that, and I think Evo Search for Eden were like my last two that I did before I took a break.
I'm not familiar with the Evo. Oh, maybe I saw a run
Oh,
once
you need to
actually.
play that at some point on your stream.
I have to.
It's really good.
Oh, okay. I see.
It's a lot of fun.
I didn't know if it was like tailored to me or something, but
No, 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 no. It's just a really good video game that I feel like everyone needs to play.
okay.
It is it's very unique. It's kind of like you build your character as the game goes on. Has some RPG-esque elements to it.
Okay. It's like evolution
Hmm.
type thing, right? Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm
It
all down
it's
for whatever games. I don't really play games casually anymore. I've been trying to fix that, so I need to cultivate my backlog.
Yeah, it's kind of like a platformer meets an RPG. That's like the best way I can describe it. And your character changes as the game changes. It's very unique. I haven't seen that model in too many other games.
Okay. And is the speed run cool for it then?
It's very cool. If I still knew how to do it, because it's been a while, and it's one of those where you can't do it rusty. You really need to practice again if you need it. But I would also recommend the speed run. There's 3 different categories for it, depending on which of the 3 paths you take, and I enjoy it thoroughly.
Good deal then. I know we briefly touched on the Mario All Stars like all games. It was
Mhm.
brought up you had the record in one of those?
In any percent for a little while, I think it was a newer category at the time, and I'm like, oh,
Uh,
this doesn't have a time. Let me post the time, and that's to what extent I had the record with
I
it.
mean it counts.
It does, but
So, there you go.
it got more people running it, and it got the time down eventually from folks running it. So I did do my part in that sense.
Yeah, that's cool. I mean, I've watched plenty of like Rupert play like the all five hundo,
Yeah,
so
Rupert is great. Yeah, would recommend.
mhm. Yeah, so I've seen plenty of the All Stars all five. I obviously didn't get to see like the early days of it when it was like because it got like a really big thing. Like I'm sure it was one of those like SRL race type deals too, quite a few
Hmm.
times. So especially like the Warpless, I think was the more popular
That
one.
was the one I ran the most. So I believe I had like a 225 in the All Games Warpless. And it wasn't SMW, it was just the Core
Yeah, the
4 Warpless. And it definitely helped that I had done speedruns of Lost Levels, because that's usually the game where people lose a lot of their time in.
yeah. I
Yeah.
I've definitely put a lot of time into Warpless of Lost Levels. Obviously not
Yeah.
the SNES version, but I should.
Yeah, I got a 225-15. That was 7 years ago, my goodness, in the Warpless. And in the all five, I still somehow have 10th place in that, and that was done 7 years ago. So wow.
Probably did those times before I was a runner.
I just
I don't know.
again, this is what I mean by an old school speedrun. I'm looking at my SRC, and it was like, if it's not Forbidden Memories or NES World Championship, it's like 6 years ago, 7 years ago, 8 years ago.
So so you started off with speedrunning and then it sounds like the break you took was like quite a few years then because there's like a gap between that and more recent stuff.
There is a gap, yeah. I did Zelda 1 Randomizer for a couple years, and then I did Wizards of the Coast called me in, and I did a lot of Magic the Gathering stuff for a couple additional years because I did some of their Mythic Championships and whatnot. I'd always been into card games. It was just something I had done on the side from streaming. So I got sucked into that for a couple more years. So between the Zelda 1 era and the Magic the Gathering era, that was probably about 4 years right there as like the gap between. And now I've kind of returned back to my roots.
Got it. Okay, so yeah, I was just trying to figure out everything in the timeline then. So,
Hmm.
got it. So, that's a pretty like big break from speedrunning,
It was, yes.
but you always come back. That's speedrunning for you. You can't ever get away from it forever.
Yeah, the running certainly isn't away from the games, that's for sure. But yeah, I think between the Fatale events and between like Forbidden Memories, that was kind of like the stuff that brought me back in. And then of course the Shuffler stuff was a lot of fun. The whole idea of was something that brought me back in. I was on Kaizo Ironmon also for about a year, and that whole idea of accomplishing a challenge run also had that in common with speedrunning, so that kind of flipped me back into speedrunning as well.
Got it. Yeah, there's a ton of overlap between speedrunning and challenge runs. Sometimes they're one
Hmm.
and the same, so
Yeah.
yeah.
So and now I'm here again thanks to Nintendo World Championship.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I'm definitely addicted to that, so like I just submitted all of my like speedrun mode times just because
That's
I could.
awesome.
And so it gives me incentive to like beat them. So but yeah, good game. But we've talked
Indeed.
plenty about that. Hopefully
Oh yeah.
GDQ shows their love at AGDQ. Would be nice.
It definitely needs to get more love. I feel like it was one of those games that kind of came and went, and now
Well, it's certainly
it
not for
needs.
everyone, but it's for speedrunners, so
Was seeing people who, it kind of brought them back into speedrunning like me, right? Like people who
Mhm.
had gone on to do console challenges and then all of a sudden they're like, oh, this came out. All right, let's do this. So it brought some people back into speedrunning off of a break, I feel.
All right. Yeah. So yeah, would recommend. $30, pretty good. Unfortunately, has Ice Climber in it, so that kind of devalues it. But we can shut on that game forever. So,
Oh, yes.
I just do not understand. Like that balloon fight, like just weird picks.
Balloon fight's cute.
It's just not a good really speedrun game,
Yeah.
I
I
guess.
estimated Kid Icarus. I did not care for Kid Icarus, and then I kind of grew to like it the more I got to do the few stages.
Yeah, the only thing I don't like about that game is if you hit a diagonal, he just
Yeah.
stops, and oh my god, the Switch controller or Switch Pro D-pad is not good.
I started on that. This is the controller you want
Yeah, I
for that.
thought about getting like the Switch NES controller just for that, but I don't
Yeah.
know. I mean, that's something I'd have to buy, and it's Nintendo, so it's probably overpriced, like how their Joy-Cons
Yeah.
are like $80 or whatever.
Yeah.
So we'll see, but yeah, I probably need to get one of those if I want to actually take things more seriously. That and like the
Yeah,
input lag makes it hard.
yeah, the input lag is definitely you can feel that in Kid Icarus more than any other game. Maybe a little
Mhm.
bit in Ice Climber as well.
I could feel it in Mario 1.
That's true.
But I still do like multiple frame perfect stuff because I have problems, but
No, you don't. Awesome.
but yeah, I mean, overall, I hope it gets more casual people more interested in speedrunning. Like that,
Sure.
and I do hope it becomes like a proper franchise because first of all, bringing back like Nintendo World Championships after all these years. Like I know they did a little thing like 10 years ago or something. And that was cool
Hmm.
because they like had a lot of speedrunners participate in
A
whatever
lot of
that
my
was.
friends were in that. Yeah.
But yeah, I'm not too familiar with that. That was again like before my time with like the whole competitive gaming side of things, but
If you look at the SRC for that, John Numbers, who was a super big contender in the Nintendo World Championship during that event, is still doing the NES World Championship
oh yeah,
edition. And I didn't notice that till the other day. And I thought that was really cool. I'm like, oh my gosh, I
so
recognize
that's
that
why I
name.
recognize that name. Yeah, he had the record in
Yeah.
Legendary Trial. I, I know him and who's it, Oopla are like trading it back and forth.
Yeah, it
I've
was
had my
really
eyes
cool
on.
though.
I've had my eyes in it, but I can't play Excite Bike or Ice Climber or Balloon Fight.
Well, I at first I'm like, my Excite Bike is good enough, and then I saw what was it, Andrew G's video on Excite
And
Bike,
then it's
and
like,
I was
no,
just
it's
like,
not good, actually.
no.
Yeah,
It
that's
was
the
really
thing.
cool though.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
it's fun though. I have a lot of fun with it. I am always someone where if I get world record, great, but I just want to be part of the community. If
Hmm.
I don't go the maximum amount of fast, that's okay. I be there and I want to have a good time.
Yeah, I'm a little too competitive for my own good, so.
I'm
But
competitive too, just maybe not in that sense when
yeah,
it
yeah.
comes to like card games and stuff like that, certainly.
Hmm. Yeah, you have to be really good at all of those games and deal with like the limitations of like good D-pads and input lag and whatever to really
Hmm.
especially now in Legendary Trial, like the time's so good. Although the Mario one I can save like 20 seconds over if I could just be good at all the other ones. That'd be nice. But
I believe in you.
we'll see. But yeah, I definitely like am really addicted to the Legendary Trial. Although it sucks grinding DK for good RNG like 10 times in a row just to get a
Oh
run.
my gosh, yeah. That was my thing. I didn't even submit my faster time. I think I got like a 25:15 or something like that. I have to go back to my VODs and highlight
Hmm.
that and submit it. But like I remember even after that, I'm like, I don't think I want to grind it down
Yeah,
beyond that.
yeah, the DK grind can be very annoying. And then Metroid, there's like
Hmm.
some weird thing with your jump height that I don't understand. So it's easy
Same.
to fall, and then eventually you get to Ice Climber, and then you just die. I'm gonna be shitting on that game all day, but
You should be.
yeah,
I
no, it's not.
understand.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, it is really addicting to me though. So I think I have a 2244 right now, and then record now is like 2142 or something. It's
Hmm.
crazy. I don't get it. I don't know how you can be so good at all those games, but
I feel that.
mhm. Super addicting. So I'll give it that. Um,
Hmm.
but yeah, I think I've covered everything. I really can't
Yeah, I
think of
think
anything I forgot to ask. I mean, you know
I
better than
think
I.
yeah, I was gonna say I think we pretty much got everything. I'm glad we talked about SSS
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
given
no.
your experience with that. So I'm happy that we talked about that.
Yeah, I was definitely upset when it ended, but yeah, I mean, that it is how it is.
Hmm.
So, but yeah, hopefully some more like smaller events. Like I have always really wanted to participate in one of those more smaller events because I've only ever got to be in GDQ or something, and then I went to the first pace I went to, which is
Mhm.
GSA's
Yeah.
thing, was more smaller. It was like only 100 or so people. But I mean, it's still not like, a group of just 20 gamers doing their thing. I really want to try to do one of those sometime. So,
Yeah.
yeah, the
They're
SSS and the
certainly my favorite.
Coliseums remind me of that. And I don't know, it's such a different vibe. And I don't know, would be cool. So I'm hoping I can do something like that sometime. But yeah, I like
Sure.
just hearing about it because, again, it's so different and you don't get the full like extent of what goes on by just watching the live streams. So you can get more
Hmm.
behind the scenes action and the funny things that go on with it.
And then suddenly you have Darvian with the eggnog at the whole.
Listen, I don't know how that video exists. I don't know what the people were thinking. I mean, again, I'm sure it's the same people that are filming people walking to the bathroom
I'm
because
sure it is. It
it
has to
doesn't make
be.
an ounce of sense. But so yeah, I'm starting to see why that uh, documentary never really came through fruition. If
Mm.
that's the kind of content they were filming, but
We never understood either.
I'm I'm glad we could bond over one thing at least today. Oh my god. Well, I guess the final thing I'll kind of ask about is what are your future plans with streaming, speedrunning, and etc.
Well, thanks to my partner, Author Blues, who's always been very supportive of me. I am still doing the streaming thing full time. I have the side gig with GDQ, and as far as the foreseeable future is, I'm just going to keep going as long as people continue to support and I love making content, which I do. I'm just gonna keep going, and as long as it remains plausible for me to do through IRL stuff, I'm going to do that.
Yeah. And what can people expect to see?
So currently, I am doing my Retro Achievements project. I don't know if you've ever heard of Retro Achievements.
Yes,
They've
I
been
have.
around forever, but I only started working on them last November. I'm just trying to accumulate points on Retro Achievements. It's a really cool side project. If I find a game that I want to speedrun, I can always do like a side thing and speedrun from there. So right now, if someone were to turn on my channel, other than the occasional randomizer I like to do, like I'm doing a randomizer with friends tonight, most of the time I'm going to be working on a lot of GameCube Retro Achievements
Mm.
in that there's a GameCube Retro Achievements event going on. They just rolled out all of the some of the GameCube achievements. I'm still waiting on a few to come in. And from there, I'm trying to get as many points as possible. You get points for completing the game and points for mastering the set. I'm just trying to complete some of the GameCube games. So as soon as I get the bronze badge, my current plans are, because I love Pokemon so much, I want to go back to some of the classic Pokemon games and try to master some of the classic Pokemon sets. I think that would be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I haven't. I've looked into the retro achievements, but I'm still like deep into speed running, and I'm just trying to casually play games. Like I don't know if I have time to do that, but the whole like concept behind it is really cool because like when I play a game that like has achievements, I do want to like get the platinum trophy or whatever it would be. So it's got to be very
Yeah.
similar to that.
Yeah, I find it a lot of fun. It makes for good content. And if for some reason you ever need like even a tiny break from speedrunning and it's somewhat speedrunning adjacent, I would recommend it. It's a lot of
Mhm.
fun.
All right, that's cool. And then I think you have to like play it on emulators or whatever, but you can like hook it up to the
Yeah,
site and it will like keep track for you, so you don't even
it
have to like.
does.
That's pretty
Yeah.
cool.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I've definitely tuned into some retro achievement streams from a few creators, so just to like get an idea for it. So it's definitely a very cool project. But yeah, I mean, depends on the time you want to sink into it, I guess. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, super cool. So I definitely enjoy watching streams like that. So did they like just add GameCube games? Is that the thing?
They recently did. Yeah, I want to say it
Okay.
was about a month and change ago they did that. And that's when, if you get so many points, you get like a bronze GameCube badge on your profile. The next tier up, a silver one, and then the next one, a gold one. So I'm just going for the bronze one right now. If I happen to hit the silver one, great. But I at least want to get like some kind of badge from the event.
Okay. Well, that's cool. So that's what we can expect to see in the near future, it sounds like.
Mhm.
And yeah. I guess that's everything. So if you're satisfied with our discussion today, so am I. So
I am. I'm very happy. And again, just a lot of stuff that I haven't thought about in a while came to the surface. So I'm really happy we talked.
all right. Well, feel free. You can self promote to your liking, and I can go ahead and end things out here.
So if y'all would like to find me, I am at twitch.tv/Skybilz. I am there most days doing retro achievement stuff and occasionally some randomizers and challenge runs and the occasional speed run as well. YouTube will give you a lot of my archive stuff as well as, maybe a few things from current projects I'm working on. That's youtube.com/Skybilz. I'm also on Twitter at Skybilz, and also Instagram as well for the occasional picture and or goofy post, Instagram Skybilz.
All right, and I'll leave the links to most of those. They're on stream, and they'll be in the YouTube description when this goes live, which should be in a few hours. I just immediately upload it, and when it's done processing, there it is. So
Cool.
it's a good
Well,
thing
thank you
about.
so much for having me.
Oh yeah, no problem. I mean, I think this is episode 80, which is kind of crazy. Like I say it every time how big the number is, but and there's still so many people I can talk to about speedrunning. There's so many
Hmm.
speedrunners.
There's a lot of us.
I haven't even scratched the surface. It's crazy. So plenty of content out there. So yep. Um. So yeah, the next episode will obviously be uploaded next Sunday. But if you're watching live, it actually streams tomorrow because I leave for PAX West in a couple days because GDQ things. So got that going on. But yeah. Thanks for being on the show. Thanks for watching. And yeah, I guess that'll be it for today. So have a good one and see you next episode. All right. Take care.
Take care.